it is time to get to the discussion, folks. We're going to talk about the Spirit series. And like I said before, we're actually going to start out by talking about the Star Runner. The Mercury Star Runner was the first Crusader ship in the game, and it was super hyped. Partially because it was the first Crusader ship, and like it was a new manufacturer, we got to see something new happening. But also because the Mercury Star Runner was beautiful. Concept was gorgeous. We loved it. You're going to see it here a little bit. It changed a bit from concept to in-game because when they used to make ships for Star Citizen, they would start them out in the concept phase, literally as a concept on paper. And what a lot of people say is, oh, they're just JPEGs. But they actually put a lot of thought and effort into making the concepts nowadays compared to back then, so that when it finally comes into the game, they don't have to make the dimensions and everything different. That's why you see a lot more ships looking a little closer to the concept now as compared to what we're about to see with the MSR. So what happened was the MSR came in and got a little chunkier, moved some stuff around. It ultimately kind of moved away from what people were really excited to see from it and got these tunnels that a lot of people say are useless. I think maybe they'll be made better when engineering is on board, but for now they do come off a little useless. So this is kind of the introduction to the ship. I won't spend too much time on this, but just to give you an idea of how the ship was introduced and what it was made for, because it's actually not made for the exact same reasons as the Spirit. But let's listen in.
The Mercury Star Runner is primarily a data collector, but it also has capacity for...
The famous Sarah McCullough. She's like a celebrated concept artist at CIG, but she moved on, I believe, to do some stuff for Star Atlas.
Entirely up to yourself, really, but its primary goal is to collect data.
But she wasn't necessarily working at CIG. Like, she wasn't an employee. I believe she was a contracted concept artist. So it's very common for them to jump back and forth between different projects.
You've got to capture it, be that from being given the stored data or using the scanners to listen in on data and convert it, encrypt it, store it, and then do the running aspect of it.
It's got a dedicated scan bay, so it's got a little room off to the right when you go into the main area of the ship. It's got, say, a dedicated area where you can go and...
To be honest, this is even from this. So this was when they first introduced the concept, and you can already see here how much this design changed from what we have now. I mean, there's no room over here. There's... Actually, no, there's these two rooms, but this hallway is like kind of turned on its side almost. Yeah, so this is definitely looking a little bit different than what we got.
Scan and collect them. It's also got 4 dedicated avionics for scanning.
Then it also has a very large bank of computers and data pods to store that in. It's much larger than the Herald, so it can hold a lot more. The downside is it's a much larger ship than the Herald, so you could be doing multiple trips in a Herald versus spending a lot of time gathering a huge amount of data in this and then transporting it.
The development process for this ship, we wanted an asymmetrical ship. We looked at a very cool asymmetrical ship, which was the Millennium Falcon, and luckily enough, we've got a toy model of the Millennium Falcon right next to our desk. But Mike had just recently worked on the Starlifter, so we had to look over the Genesis.
See, now, I love this look for the MSR, and this isn't too far off from what we got, but you can tell that the angles are a little more sharp. It has a little bit more of like a sleek look to it, and I'm sure, you know, like morphologists could probably tell me more of the definitive architectural parts of why I like this more. But it definitely changed from this.
It's a Starliner, and tried to implement some of that in what you see now.
Taking the Crusader style that was developed for the Starlifter and transposing that onto something that has to look fast, has to be asymmetrical. With it being a Sarah's first ship, there was a lot of iterations in terms of just sketching out ideas because they're quite fast. Sometimes it's hard when you have too many things to look at. So basically, you know...
I love this stuff. They used to show this a lot more. They'd show us like what kind of design iterations they went through to get to the ship. Getting to see some of their ideas was cool. And it also kind of, like, sometimes these would end up looking like some future ships we'd get.
And we'll start trying to just hone it down to what I think Chris will like, so that we have like generally like 3 options for him to look at.
When we're looking at ships, we always have to think about thruster placement, and asymmetric ships always cause trouble on that side because...
See, look at how thin that is. That is like...
And asymmetric ships always cause trouble.
It is intensely thinner than what we got. Look at the backside here. There's like almost nothing dropping down. This is so much sleeker than what we got. Holy crap. I've actually never seen this specific shot, but this makes it look a lot thinner. I bet this never would have worked. Just need more room for components and stuff.
Because the best or strongest thruster layout is a very symmetrical.
So it also does look a little bit smaller than what we got. Like, almost like they introduced the Spirit series because this thing ended up getting so big.
Typical sort of cube or elongated shape where all the thrusters are in line with each other. They can all counter each other equally. If you don't have the hull to support that, then you have to compromise it somewhere. When we were building this ship, we knew we wanted to have the asymmetric shape. Some of the early versions were very, very different to the final form, and they all suffered from that. So we tried.
Wow, those look very different.
To see how we could keep the asymmetric look, but keep it symmetrical in terms of its thruster placement.
With the Starlifter, it was soft curves. There were, it had a double wing. We still, we kept some negative space between that. So we took those things across. But this is more angular. But it works in terms of just sort of, you can't make a cargo ship.
Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of look. Now, that's about as much as I want to get into that. I'm going to switch over to the Inside Star Citizen. A little bit more like produced to show off sort of the ship's design. But one thing we haven't talked about is the ship's meaning. I mean, this thing was clearly built as like a data runner and smuggler, as somebody's saying in chat. So it has different use cases. And a lot of people, myself included, saw the MSR as a daily driver, even though once data running is in the game, that's going to take up a lot of that space and power that the ship uses, making it maybe not the best daily driver. So something that is general purpose like the C1 makes a lot more sense to me. Not to mention the MSR is missing a ton of its gameplay. Let's listen.
It's that ship that people in their head kind of see in a fantasy sci-fi world. It's that blockade runner, that cargo runner, that smuggling ship that the company who makes it may not think smuggling, but that's the purpose people start using it for.
The Mercury's a fan favorite because
I think a lot of people initially attach to what it looks like.
It has some cool features in it, right? So
Isn't that a bummer? Like, the first thing they say is like, yeah, I think people liked this mainly because of what it looked like, and then it changed.
I think the deck is kind of stacked in its favor.
you can haul cargo, you have multi-crew gameplay, you've got scanning, you've got data running. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all that you'd want if you were only going to buy one ship.
I don't think every ship gets fat between concept and launch. I think that's something that used to happen a lot more. You look at a ship like like any ship really that came out and recently, the Vulture didn't get much bigger. The Corsair didn't get much bigger, I don't think. I think in general, the Hull C didn't get much bigger. The Cutter series, we don't know what the concept was for that. But I think they've gotten a lot better at sizing their concepts out well. There's still a little bit to change, but it's not quite like when the MSR came out. I think that was a very specific problem they had at this time.
So the exterior on this ship, the default version will be white, black, and red. That white area on top is basically where all of the tinting gets applied for the ship.
Asymmetry is just something different then, so it's a little bit surprising, right? When somebody looks at something and they don't see the same thing on the other side, then there's always like a little bit of wonder maybe.
So it's kind of cool because it's kind of like when you get a white SUV, but it's like dual tone and you have the bottom half of the SUV is kind of like the black plastic. That's sort of the way we're treating all of these Crusader ships. When you first walk into a Mercury,
Mrs. Tomato with the T.
basically the feeling should be of sort of open possibilities, right?
So the cockpit has these cool retracting seats. They travel all the way to the front and they kind of give you this nice little ride. And then we also have all these physicalized buttons where we actually mapped out all of the buttons that we're going to need for the ship and then add.
This was back, the ship models, the whole ship pipeline, somebody just said it in chat, has changed a ton over the years. They used to be so much, and you're hearing it right now as they talk about this. Like they're like, yeah, we made all the switches. You're going to hear that. Oh yeah, we've got like switches for the lights and like this and that. And you're going to be hearing these things and be like, yeah, not what ships come with. And you realize just how much like the process of making these ships have changed over time. When back then they were highlighting these things that we kind of expect, and things that they probably highlight right now, we will probably expect in a few years. The ship pipeline is always changing because they're always trying to get more efficient at it. They've definitely improved over the years. I think that there are places that it still could be better, but like what we get here is a really, really clear view into like how they viewed it back then versus what it's like, what it's on right now.
The functionality to those buttons as we implement the gameplay associated with them. The visibility is really good. It's got this open canopy that you can see pretty good in all directions. And you also get a little bit of downward direction, so when you're landing you can see the ground.
The server room.
Hey, don't shame my vulture, all right? Those arms are a warming embrace, okay? I was meant for those arms on the vulture. Anybody who's not reading chat, that probably sounds really weird. Just ignore it.
When data running comes online, this is going to be one of the busiest hubs of this ship.
You're going to see a split between the server.
I want to go back to like watching this video in real time and pick it out of my head and be like, when he said when data running comes online, what did you think, old 2020 tomato? What was going through your mind? I guess actually by the time it was 2020, I was not so disenfranchised. I think it was around this time I started to realize how much longer things would take. It was more 2018, 2019 when I would hear things and think, oh, okay, so the next couple of years. But I think by 2020, I was like, all right, it's going to be a while. Granted, I think I probably still thought we would have data running by now in 2020. God, the timeline changed so much once iCache and server meshing did not work out anytime soon. But let's not get in. Jesus, I'm going to derail the chat so quickly. Let's get back to the MSR.
First section, and also where you get into the turrets. So the server room is kind of a place where you walk into and then kind of decide what direction you're going to go in and what exactly you're going to do.
It's going to have a lot of little busy bee activity going around, changing out the server racks, trying to get the data that you're specifically looking for.
To me, what you really see in the server room is many opportunities and options for what to do next.
The infamous chess room.
To A, we can play chess. I worked on that for quite a bit, but we got it there. And B, it's that room where players can get up, kind of group up before a mission, talk about what they're going to do, how they're going to approach it, and then execute.
The hab room, again, we kind of want to convey a little sense of like relaxation or a little bit more calmer. You kind of want to be able to relax and, and lay down and just kind of chill out.
Habitation, you'll see sort of a long hallway, and then built into that hallway you'll have several different stations, your toilet, your sort of desk where you can do your midnight reading, as well as some access to the sublevel.
The maintenance sublevel is kind of cool.
That was a little rough on the music edit there.
Just like these ventilation shafts that you can walk around in, and you can kind of see the inner workings of the ship, and you can kind of sneak around a little bit, but you'll let you discover that on your own.
Engineering is very compact. You have a bunch.
What do you mean, no table? You're going to eat on the chessboard, whether you like it or not.
This is where you'll most likely have to run to make repairs when things start to hit the fan.
Yo, I love that. Anybody who owns an MSR knows that him saying this room, engineering, where you're going to have to run to make repairs, is falling on the floor. It takes so long to get to this room from the cockpit because the MSR has doors that don't really want you to use them. This room's all the way in the back of the ship, right next to the entrance, actually. So it's going to be interesting trying to defend this, but ultimately, I cannot wait until we can just lock doors open because it is actually annoying to try and get to the engineering room on this ship.
Scanning room's going to be a really neat room. Players, when they go in there right now, it functions as a support seat. So you need somebody else to run the extra radar contacts or whatever, you can see it from that seat. But in the future, the gameplay of that room, it's really going to come alive. Cargo bay is very exciting in this in the Star Runner in that we were able to increase it. So the Star Runner is running a little bit more cargo. It also went through probably some of the largest amount of redesigns of any ship that I've worked on so far.
See, look how much thicker it got. Woohoo!
Was to be able to fit the Ursa and the Cyclone inside of it and make all of that kind of geometry work.
Would you not have a dedicated engineer? I don't think there's space on this ship for a dedicated engineer, to be honest.
Pretty rewarding in the end.
The thing I'm hoping players find a lot of joy with is that element of players kind of getting into that ship and having fun doing what they really want to do. As a designer, is really
this ship honestly must have been when the people were like, okay, Dev, Now, talk about how you made the ship, talk about what you like about it. Kind of sell it, you know? Give people something to be excited about. It must have been hard to be like, yeah, I'm really excited for players to get their hands on this ship and like think about what they're going to do with it. I mean, jokes aside, this is actually my favorite ship in the game. I love flying this ship as my daily driver. It's great for vehicles, great for cargo. It's great to have a couple people around. It's defensible with 2 turrets. Like, this is a great ship. It's just not exactly what we were hoping for from the concept. But I think it's really funny that it's such a great basic ship for that kind of stuff. But the devs can't really come out and inside Star Citizen and just say that. So he's just like, yeah, you know, it's cool that the players are going to get this ship and get to do what they want to do with it. Yeah, agreed. But that's not exactly why we're getting the ship, the data running stuff. I always just find that probably more difficult for them earlier on in the project to try and sell these ships on concepts. But now the ships have more of the gameplay actually able to be shown when they're talking about it, which is good.
What will make me really happy to kind of see it used for those purposes.
So that is the MSR. And really, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a prelude before we got into the Spirit here. We're actually going to get to the main topic of the show. But I wanted you guys to see sort of the predecessor to the Spirit and the reason a lot of people are very excited for the Spirit. Now, we're not going to jump straight into the video stuff, but after watching that, probably be interesting to kind of jump into more of the video content they have for the Spirit. Shows the difference between 2 to 3 years of how they talk about these ships. But before we go there, let's look at the page that originally launched with the Spirit. So there are 3 models of this. There's the A1 military. It's a bomber with size 5 bombs. I think either 8 or 10 of them. The C1, which is a more of a cargo focused kind of daily driver style ship. That's the white one here. That's the one I'm interested in. And then there is the E1, which is a VIP transport. I guess they put the main one in the front every time. This is like a VIP transport that's meant to probably shuttle around, I think 2 or 3 people at a time. 3 minimum, 3 maximum. Yeah, so you can see that you get a little private cabin here with a door if you need it, a nice view, some entertainment, TV, table, all that jazz. This is like the smaller version of the Connie Phoenix. Of course, no matter what ship it is, if it's being sold for Star Citizen, they've got to put it on here shooting something. Like, you got your luxury personnel transport, go and get in a dogfight. So the A1, this is the first one that's going to release. This one is probably coming out. I mean, this honestly, people, you could be seeing this. You could be seeing players in this ship by the time this ends up being made into a YouTube video. I'm almost certain by the time CitizenCon is over, we will have this ship in player hands, if not the week after. It is a small to medium-sized bomber. I think it's about 24 meters wide or so. Man, they don't put any of the specs here. Oh, you have to download the specs. Let's just look it up on the wiki. Why do I have to go to the wiki? CIG? I feel like I shouldn't have to do that. Okay, I was having it. 46 meters long, 43 meters wide. So this thing's like a little square, which you can tell. It's got super wide wings. It's a pretty large silhouette if you've got somebody gunning for you. And yeah, it looks like 10 bombs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on each side. And this really takes up the whole back half of the ship. So looking here, we won't click into too many of these. You can see the ship is basically a long hallway. And this is kind of, I think, the biggest downside to this ship, and many will probably agree. This thing is competing with the Cutlass. It's got similar SCU. It is kind of similar in size, similar crew size, and the C1 is sort of general purpose in the same one the Cutlass Black is. But it's missing a turret, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like really not the best in terms of size efficiency. Yeah, like take the Freelancer, which is another hallway style ship, and just add some bigger wings on the sides and you got a Spirit. So one of the big things I'm interested in learning, hopefully at CitizenCon or, whenever they finally are revealing this thing for gameplay, is they talk about what is going for this ship. It's got a big size. It's similar to another smaller ship that's a little bit easier to get around with. Is it just the looks? Is it just the beautiful understanding and knowledge that I am better than my Cutlass driving peers because I'm in a Crusader, a hot Crusader ship? or is there, like, I'm pretty sure the shields are also lower, right? We're going to look into that. You have less guns. The ship is pretty slow. Is it form over function is what you kind of start asking. So yeah, let's see. Technical specs, we got 2 pilot weapons at S3s. Okay, so you got two S3s on the wing, 2 S2s on the nose. Not bad. Those 2 S3s can help. 4 S3s would have been great. That probably would have been too much, to be honest. You got a remote turret. Okay, so the A1 does have a remote turret. That's right. A1 and E1 have a remote turret. The C1 does not. So the C1's at a disadvantage to the Cutlass Black. But the A1 or E1, which really don't have competitors in game, I don't think. Could anything compete with the E1? Thinking maybe the Phoenix might fit, but like the Phoenix is a significantly larger ship. Probably longer trips. 10 size 5 bombs, 2 crew, which should mean we've got beds on here. I'm not actually seeing beds. Is there a habitation area? Cutlass gets both the tractor beam and the turret. That is true. So again, what are you trading in? Just the Crusader privilege, or are you getting something else when you pick a C1 Spirit over a Cutlass Black? In fact, let's do a direct comparison here. Let me grab the Cutlass Black to give you the ultimate understanding of where this ship fits into your lineup. Where will you put the Spirit in your hangar? We got the C1 Spirit, medium freight, Cutlass Black, medium freight. Size, medium, size, medium. Okay. Crew capacity, 1 to 2 on the Spirit, 3 on the Cuddy. 48 SCU of cargo on the Spirit, 46 on the Cutlass. All right. Same exact price. So they're selling for the same price. They want them to be seen as competitors at least. Size-wise, while the Cutlass Black is 37 meters long, this one is 46. Now I'm rounding down. I know they're 0.5. You're supposed to round up, but get with me. 46 versus 37 meters. So you're already got a longer Spirit, but then you go to the width, and the Spirit, the Cutlass comes in at 26 meters wide, while the Spirit is 43 meters wide, almost 20 meters wider. So like definitely a bigger profile. Good point, Shifty. They are the same price while the Spirit's in concept. Spirit will probably go up. So yeah, there's a big discrepancy when it comes to the size of these ships, which is really interesting. And we don't know like the fuel specs and the speed and stuff for this ship. Maybe this thing's got a large fuel capacity. I don't know. I think they're going to have to sell this for those who are looking more kind of numbers wise. Now me, I'm here for the vibes, man. I don't care if the Crusader Spirit is that bad. As long as it is keeping me pretty safe and I can upgrade it as needed, I'm good. I'm looking for a ship that like makes me feel like I'm in my favorite space sci-fi fiction. Mix it in with a little bit of Star Citizen, give me a story, let me do my thing. I'm not that picky about which ship I'm flying. I want them to look cool and I want to feel cool in them. So I don't need to be like sold on this ship, but I do think for the ship to be a success, they probably need to, give people a reason to be excited about it. As for things like the components, we don't really have too much info here. It has a size 2 quantum drive, which is the same size as the Cutlass. It's got a size 2 jump drive. Solid. Always love to see a jump drive by default. The Cutlass doesn't say it has one. Is it actually missing a jump drive, or is that just not on here? Fuel tank intake, quantum fuel tank, thrusters, 2 main thrusters size 2, 2 retro thrusters size 2, gimbal maneuvering thruster. Where are shields and stuff? Avionics and shift systems. So the Cutlass has more radar power, at least currently. It has the same size power plant. That's one size 2 power plant. The Spirit has less coolers, And again, all this stuff might change. We're reading concept statistics, so whatever might actually release with this ship, which is again probably in the next couple of months, could change from this. But as of right now, it has less coolant than the Cutlass, which is interesting. And then shield generator, it has one size 2, which is the same as the Cutlass. So maybe if they bumped up the shields on this ship, it would be a little bit more interesting. Tractor beam? I don't know why the tractor beams aren't on here, but they both do have tractor beams. Here we go. Yeah. So on the turrets, they both do have the size 3 tractor beams, which is going to be able to, I think it's size 2, I'm pretty sure. And they'll talk about that in the videos we're about to watch, but I'm pretty sure the tractor beam on the C2 will be one size below the Argo SRV. This also compares to the Freelancer a little bit, but I think the Freelancer comes out a bit better in terms of components, SCU, and efficiency with size. So if people are looking for like which ship is better, I'm probably going to point them towards the Freelancer every time between the two, but this with the Cutlass is actually kind of close, and I look forward to seeing how they further differentiate them. Just to give you an idea of the Cutlass, this thing has 66 SU, so you're doing a lot more than these other ships. But it also, it comes in at a kind of similar size. So again, something to consider, but I would say this is more close to the Cutlass. Now, that is kind of information-wise what we have on these ships. Really, these sales pages and most of what I'm going to show you is what we have. We haven't gone too much more in depth with them, so I expect a lot more info at CitizenCon. So we've looked a lot at static pages. Let's listen to what they have to say about this stuff.
This is a series of ships.
Now, okay, sorry. Before we get started, this is significant because this is CitizenCon last year. And what you will hear a lot of times is everything shown at CitizenCon doesn't get delivered to the game for X number of years. Now, I agree. There are some things that don't. They lag behind on a lot of systems. Things take different priorities. Some of the stuff just gets dropped onto the backlog after it's shown off, which is very annoying. A little irresponsible, but it's also, it happens. This is a ship that was introduced about a year ago to the date at the last CitizenCon, which is now being delivered at this CitizenCon. I think that's a solid way to start going. Shorten that period a lot more. 6 months, I think, would be even better. But it's significant because it's a lot better, in my opinion, than this ship still being in concept with, and us not knowing anything about where it is, and then them introducing another ship at this CitizenCon. They needed to get this done by now. I'm glad they did.
It's from Crusader Industries that is designed to take on a variety of other manufacturers' ships at the 2-person crew level and does a wide variety of tasks depending on which variant you pick. The 2 standout competitors to this ship are naturally the Cutlass and obviously the Cutlass Blue, Red, Steel, and the Freelancer series. Those are all similar sized ships to this, and they also cover similar sort of roles. Compared to the Cutlass and Freelancer series, the Spirit benefits from not only Crusader Industries' sort of stylish physical appearance, but also their renowned speed and agility over those other variants. We have 3 variants of the Crusader Spirit. We have the C1, which is the cargo hauler version. We have the A1, which is the light to sort of medium bomber version. And then we have the E1, which is the executive VIP transport.
I do like that the E1 has that skylight. That's pretty cool. Just put that on any variant, please. Thanks.
One of the
more windows in this game.
Really nice features of the Spirit series as a whole is the front half of the ship is kind of like this shared area.
So the C1 is the cargo hauler version. This comes with 48 SCU of cargo capacity in the central area, accessible like the other versions via the rear ramp. It's wide enough to allow a variety of ground-based vehicles on board, such as the Cyclone. You won't be fitting larger things in it like the tank. However, with the size of the cargo bay on the C1, you can put a vehicle and still have some cargo capacity left over. The A1 is the bomber version of the Spirit, which sort of splits the difference between the Hercules A2's bomber version, which has both size 10 and size 3 bomb options. This comes with size 5 bombs, and they are arranged in 2 vertical gravity dropped formations down each side of the central area. So you have a nice little walkway down the middle.
I think that the gravity drop aspect of these bombs is really funny when it's a spaceship It reminds me of what episode was that? There's a Star Wars. I think it might have been episode. It was one of the sequels. So 7, I think maybe 7 or 8. There was a battle they were having, and the ships are flying through space, and they like open the doors, and the bombs just fall out. they like fall out in space, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? Now, granted, I will say this: that is actually kind of how gravity works in this game. If you drop something inside of the ship, it gets all the gravity, and then as soon as it leaves the ship, it keeps the momentum. So like I get that, but it looked really dumb in the movie. And I know that, you know, they were pushed out stuff, but like if you look at it, you can tell they were drawn by gravity. Either way, that's what this reminds me of. They got these vertical launch bombs that are like make it look like they're going to get drawn out by gravity, when in reality they're just getting kind of launched. And I guess the A2's bomb is sort of just dropped as well. I feel like there should be like a propulsion system for these bombs, but it certainly looks cool. I'll give them that.
And then you have the two sort of lines of bombs each side of you, and you'll be able to see them drop out of the bottom of the ship.
Ship will have 10 bombs.
There's a different role to what the Starlifter does in terms of the bomber. I think it's a much kind of smaller, faster ship, so it's much more agile. You're going to be kind of getting in and out, and you know, doing your bombing run and then getting back out of the danger zone quite quickly. So it feels quite familiar in that sense, but it does deliver a unique kind of play style compared to the Starlifter.
Dude, if another company releases a small bomber, like if we get an RSI bomber in the same size range, it'll probably clobber this ship, because it's a fairly slow and big ship. The A1 and E1 definitely have a better case for being in the game than the C1, but like if another ship comes out as a competitor to them, we'll see what they have going for them.
So you might be asking yourself which one's better, and it really depends on what you want to wipe off the face of the planet that you're bombing. Obviously the A2 has both heavy hitters and what could be described as carpet bombing, whereas this is sort of for when you don't want to completely annihilate everything on the ground. And lastly, we have the E1 variant, which solely exists to give Jared heartburn over his Starliner. So this is a sort of taste of what the Starliner will get in the future, but on a much smaller scale.
The VIP1 is a really interesting module. It's basically split into two levels. And so... Okay,
so this will come up again as I think the potential reason for why the E1 is taking longer. This ship is 2 levels. They have that normal hallway where you're kind of walking back and forth like we see in the A1 and C1, but up above, which is where that concept art takes place, you can see the passenger transport area, and they have that kind of nice glass cockpit up above the canopy. So I think this ship takes a little bit more work than the A1 or the C1 because it has that second floor, and that's why we don't really hear much about it coming out yet.
You know, we really wanted to sort of have that VIP experience. Obviously, you're coming into a sort of multi-role ship, but when you get into the module, you've got lockers, space to put any sort of personal belongings. If essentially you go into 2 elevators, left or right, and take you up to the top deck. So it has that sort of first-class feeling.
I think what really makes the E1 stand out compared to some of our other ships is the kind of the large panoramic glass roof. So when you're in this kind of shared VIP area, you're gonna have great views and be able to kind of like explore the verse in something that I think is gonna be quite unique.
And we also have the Mixmaster, which is at the front of the module, which is basically where players can go and choose whatever the drink it is. So it's, you know, cocktails or coffee. And then players will also have super comfy seats. They'll have the widescreen TV in their module.
I'm really excited to see when we start getting our players and our AIs into these ships and being able to kind of explore the verse and you know, experience that kind of luxury living that well, I've not yet to experience.
So between the
You
three
and me
variants,
both.
there are a number of shared areas. The sort of core of the ship changes with each variant, but there are some aspects which don't need to change. And starting from the front of the ship, you actually have the cockpit or the
sleek.
bridge. So like other Crusader ships, you have the side-by-side pilot to co-pilot arrangement. Then you have behind them their living quarters / bunk area and component access. And then you have the variant section which does change the sort of internal floor plan of the ships between them. Then at the rear of the ship, you naturally have the ramp access area. So that's the Crusader.
Is that a rail?
Ships between them.
Doesn't it look a lot
at the rear
like
of the ship? You naturally have the ramp access.
Doesn't it look a lot like there's like a rail right here, kind of like the Scorpius that this turret or whatever travels down? I mean, it's got to be, right? Yeah, it's a rail. Okay. Is the tractor beam on a rail kind of like that? That would be really interesting if the tractor beam could come up above, but I can't imagine why they would want to do that. Maybe the tractor's just at the back. The rail system is an interesting choice. I'm actually kind of surprised they're doing it again after the Scorpius, but maybe they find that it will be something that can work out for us.
So that's the Crusader Spirit. We hope you look forward to seeing this and seeing what it can do in the game in the future.
That's a beautiful ship, man. This red one, I saw that they made this red trim with like gold detail. And I'm not gonna lie, I am a person that generally doesn't buy anything or say to buy anything, but that might be the first paint I buy in this game. It looks really good. Unless they're gonna start letting us get paints in game, who knows? But this is a great looking ship. I really like it. Now, the C1 and A1 are coming soon, like I said, but the E1 is gonna take a little while longer. Partially. Let's see if I can find something for you guys here. So here is what we have right now as far as the E1 goes. This is from CitizenCon. Is this last year? I don't know. Is this last year or the year before? I have it as 2022, but I feel like this might have been the year before. Either way, this is CitizenCon recently. Kind of the first working models they have of passenger transport, really getting an AI to spawn at a station, follow you outside to your ship, transition between the space station and your ship, and then to sit down in a seat and wait until they're delivered to another area. This is like the most basic version. They also want AI to have things that they want you to do. Maybe like they want you to fly a certain way, never go over a certain speed, all that kind of jazz. But passenger transport gameplay is something that they've clearly been working on in the background, but I think they're waiting until server meshing, or at least the replication layer separation, for these things to be more reliable before they move it in. So I think the E1 is kind of held back by this, but we're also about to hear right here some more details about the E1, being specifically how much different the model is.
And then we've got the other people that were working on the cutter. They've moved on to working onto the Spirit. So, you know, the Spirit is in early white box. Again,
this is last December. So they introduced that ship to us in concept, which I'm betting, as is tradition, a lot of the reactions were, oh, we're not going to see the ship for years. And they got into it pretty quickly. November of last year, they were in white box.
We're tackling the interior. It's all coming along pretty well. We're focusing mainly on the bomber variant right now. But we are making sure we white box the VIP variant, because the VIP one is the one that's going to cause the most headaches. It's got multiple floors in a small space.
It's got an escape pod. Well, escape.
I don't know if we've actually announced that yet.
Oh, now we have.
Okay.
So there's your two things. And they kind of said this offhand at the time, but I think they were very much serious about this. The E1 is going to cause a lot of headaches, and so it's going to take a while. And they also let slip, obviously, the escape raft.
So yeah, we have to work out the middle section, being the escape raft.
Yeah, the secret bit.
The secret. That's correct.
So yeah, there's a few technical and visual hurdles we need to tackle with that. So we're working through that at the moment. We're working on the
Links,
thank you.
All right, so they just go into other videos there. But clearly the C1 and A1 were focuses because the E1 was a little bit more difficult to use or make. And also the A1 and C1 have more obvious gameplay. Now, there's not like a mission that tells you to go bomb things, but you at least can bomb things. You can't really put NPCs in your transport ship. That being said, there are transport beacons, and I feel like this offered CIG a really good chance to improve the beacon system. I mean, I know that they're doing that. I think the mission team is working on beacons, but in terms of wanting to like call people for transport or call people to pick up a box for you or something, oh God, it's just so miserable right now. and the E1 could have been more useful if beacons were a little bit better. So we go to the monthly report then for the same time period. This is November, December of 2022. And you can see that what they're saying on the art side of the ships, this is their first monthly report update on the Spirit series. Here's what they say. The team began work on the Crusader Spirit, which is progressing through the white box phase. The biggest challenge has been ensuring that the escape raft on the VIP variant is fully functional at this early stage so we can avoid extra work in the future. So they got the big difficulty of the escape raft done early, but they don't really mention the double deck configuration. So it's up in the air what might be keeping it up, but we do know it's a more complex ship. This is the next update we were getting on the Spirit series. This is back in March, so about 3 to 4 months later. See what they were doing at that time.
There's also the Crusader Spirit, which just entered gray box phase recently. You can see here early work on the exterior, making certain every part of it matches the metrics laid out in the white box phase before it.
So already you can tell, compared to the MSR, this ship has kept way more true to the concept. Something that, again, they've just gotten better at since back in the day.
Then popping in through the rear of the ship, which, like the Lynx, is also in the back.
What I don't know is how much can fit into this rear entrance. I think some people were saying the rock can't fit into this ship, which would be a bummer.
And then into the cockpit that's looking, well, a bit contrasty at the moment. But that's not uncommon for gray box phase.
So 2 beds. I think I was looking for that earlier.
As this period is mostly about defining shape language and material breakup before everything gets refined later in final art phase. And then let's take a look at the gray box bomb bay for the bomber variant that's being worked on in tandem with all the others.
So that was a March update on the ship, and I think the biggest thing here, honestly, is just like they did a good job of translating this into game and not losing a lot of the sleek design that made the concept. Next up, we got another monthly report. So we came back on May to learn a little bit more about what was going on with the ship going through production. They actually were working on vehicle tractor beams. So they were working on vehicle tractor beams coming to the Origin 315, the Drake Caterpillar Cutlass Black, the CNOU Nomad, and the Misk Halsey. There are a lot of ships that are going to benefit from ship tractor beams, which probably are coming in the next month or two. Like the Nomad is going to be such a useful ship when that happens. And the C1 is another ship that's going to have tractor beams, which they probably were doing at the same time. Here they say the development of the Crusader Spirit continued. The C1 is almost gray box complete, while the A1 had its LOD 0 review scheduled for early June. So by this point in May, the C1 was behind the A1, and they're not even mentioning the E1. So there's already some distinction that the A1's coming first here. And then we get to May 26th, which was IAE. Many of you watched. Many of you might, or sorry, Invictus, not IAE. Many of y'all may have watched, maybe not, but there were a couple of good information drops here as well. Some about the Spirit. So we'll play that real quick.
The C1 Spirit is marked to have an S3 tractor beam. Will the C1 be able to track smaller vehicles? And what's the difference between an S3 and an S5? This goes to your...
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. It's not supposed to track the vehicles. It's for 32 SU cargo containers, the size 2. So it's getting changed to a size 2, but it's just part of the refactor of the tractor beam sizes.
It's still just as powerful as it was. It's just the names changed.
It doesn't do any less or more than we said it was going to do originally. It's just that the numbering's changed because we're now doing component grading instead of weapon grading.
Does that mean it can... I don't know if I want to ask this question.
Go on, ask the question.
So if you've got
a when question?
That's like super small, can that be picked up by a size 2?
32 SU containers. What was set as the maximum you'd have to ask a UPU.
Full of what though? Gold.
Yeah. We go over this every time we watch this clip. I agree with that. I'm like, yeah, full of what?
That's UPU. Water. It's their feature.
Come on, give us the answers.
So
all right, I'll just go ask.
Is the PTV smaller or larger than 32?
Well, physically it's smaller.
Yeah,
it's much.
And it would weigh less.
Definitely.
Okay, so
I feel like I'm getting someone into trouble here.
some like they're getting very close to answering that question, and I feel like they probably don't want
Do
to.
the redacted thing.
Quick call Thorsten.
Yeah.
Yeah, ring Thorsten.
Can we get Thorsten on the line?
Nobody's going to say it.
That's confirmation that the new tractor beams will be able to lift the gray cat.
Nobody said it specifically. But like, I keep talking about that. Are these tractor beams going to be mass related or volume related? Like, can you pick up something that's a different weight if it's heavier than a 32 SU box of something else, or maybe like they were asking, can you pick up an STV since it technically weighs less than a 32 SU box or something? Like, I think there's a lot of questions that we'll have, and there's a lot that they'll need to explain with that. Maybe at CitizenCon, maybe at the first Inside Star Citizen before 3.21.1 drops. I don't know, but there's a lot of questions around tractor beams, and the Spirit has one. So it'll be interesting to find out what that means for us, because they are going to be taking into account the mass of cargo when you're hauling it. So if you have cargo in your ship that's throwing off the weight of your ship, you should feel it. Why wouldn't that translate to tractor beams as well? Now, there was a mention there of tractor beam size changes. So if we go to the Crusader Spirit page on the C1, the tractor beam says it is a size 3, I believe. So what he was saying there was they used to use component grading for this stuff, or they used to use weapon grading for this stuff, which goes through like from like size 1 to 10 or something. Now they're using component grading, which goes from size 0 to 3. So I think this will now be a size 2 is what he was saying, but it'll have the same level of strength. Let me go back and confirm that.
32 SU cargo containers the size 2, so it's getting changed to a size 2, but it's just part of the refactor of the tractor beam sizes.
It's still just as powerful as it was, it's just the name's changed.
It doesn't do any less or more than we said it was going to do originally, it's just that the numbering's changed because we're now doing component grading instead of weapon grading.
Yeah, so it has changed to a size 2 with the same power level. There's 4 beam sizes. There's size 0, which is our tractor beam attachment on the multi-tool. Size 1, which is the regular tool that we still don't have. I think that's probably coming in with vehicle tractor beams, but this would be like your handheld tool that you're using to lift slightly larger boxes, more heavy things. This is what like a dedicated cargo hauler would carry instead of the multi-tool. Looks like this. You guys probably have seen it. So this would be your size 1 laser. And then a step up from this would be like your ship tractor beams, like what's in the Spirit, which would be a size 2. And that is the ship level tractor beam. Size 3 then would be the SRV's tractor beam, which is one of a kind as of right now. But that can carry ships, which size 2 can only carry SCU boxes. So recently we got another art update in July. There's actually a lot of stuff here. Look at how many different ship updates they had in this monthly report. You guys probably remember this one. And they talked a bit about the spirits in here again. They mentioned that the Crusader A1 Spirit progressed through final art with a handful of LODs remaining for its interior and exterior damage. Work also continued on the C1 cargo variant, with the main difference being minor exterior changes and the cargo room, the latter of which is currently progressing through Greybox, with most of the core forms refined. So A1 was in final art by July, C1 was still in Greybox, clearly behind. That actually wraps it up, guys. That is about everything we know about the Crusader Spirit series right now. It's surprisingly little. This ship has not been known about for very long, only a year. A year does not give us very much to dig into. I think we were able to get a lot out of this, but ultimately, until we get the A1 in our hands, we're not really going to know.